Slavery was illegal in Mexico after 1829, but the law was seldom enforced. Mexico did offer protection and legal rights for the free African Americans that were living in Texas. Among them were Greenberry Logan, Hendrik Arnold, and William Goins. These men later helped Texas win independence. Texas's land had plenty of resources for the colonists, with plenty of fish in the streams and animals in the forest, as well as on the prairie. Food was bountiful for the skilled hunters. In 1834, a Texas colonist wrote about the animals that could be hunted in Texas.
In addition to hunting, colonists often foraged for wild berries and nuts to feed themselves and their families. Some also had staples or basic food products such as salt, sugar, and flour that they brought with them. The settlers eventually planted crops and built mills to grind sugar cane and grains into syrup and flour. However, colonial Texans rarely enjoyed a balanced diet. Fresh vegetables were available usually only during the growing season. As a result, colonists generally only ate meat and dried vegetables for much of the year. Corn was a primary staple and was used in most every meal. It could be eaten fresh or dried as well as ground into meal to be prepared in various ways. In addition to providing food, the Texas land also provided materials that could be used to build homes. When timber was found, the colonists would use it to build shelters, like log cabins. Rock was generally used to build homes on the western side of the settlement. Usually colonists began with a room cabin, and as the family grew larger, a possible second cabin could be built. To connect these, pathways were built between the cabins, usually with a breezeway. Most of the cooking was done over an open fireplace. The fireplace also provided warmth and light for the entire cabin. The floor was often bare, with wooden planks elevated off the floor. Colonists often used corn husk or tree moss to create a mattress. If the mattress were not placed in the sun, fleas and ticks would thrive in the mattress, making most people very ill from the sickness of the bug bites.
Furniture was made from the nearby resources, such as wood and trees. In order for Texas citizens to obtain land grants, they had to be or agree to become Catholic. Many only agreed to become Catholic to obtain the large amounts of land they received. Those who were faking being Catholic had to be baptized to become officially Catholic. San Felipe de Austin became known as the Molding Catholics because there were so little priests in Texas they worship on their own time. Doak McCann established the first Methodist church, and Thomas J. Pilgrim preached the faith to all the citizens. Colonists faced tons of challenges, such as disease. This was one of the most common hardships the colonists faced, as well as they had to travel to many different towns to visit the town doctor, who most of the time couldn't even help them.
Colonists who were ill or injured used home-made medicines that usually didn't work. Another conflict that Texans faced were natives. In 1824, Aylett Buckner, an agent of Stevens, made a treaty with the Tonkawas and the Wacos. The treaty reduced the tension between the natives and Texans, but other natives saw Texans as a threat that could be driven out with fear. Colonists began to feel unprotected due to the frequent Karawa attacks. The tribes had attacked many times before, and Austin decided to make a militia.
The militia was called the Texas Rangers. The purpose of the small militia was to prevent the raiding parties from succeeding in their plan. Anglo-Americans accepted the hardships, but soon realized the unfairness between Mexicans and Anglo-Americans. By 1830, the tensions were growing.
Question number 5. What was the name of the group of Indians that held vicious attacks on the settlers? A. The Apaches. B. The Karankawas. C. The Navajo. D. The Dohas. period where the differences between the Texans and Mexicans arose. Most of the Texans were too busy adjusting to life in Mexico. There were cultural differences between the Texans and the Mexican officials. This soon caused problems to arise. Most of the colonists were willing to accept the new conditions. However, some of the colonists didn't accept the new conditions. This soon caused them to make very little effort to be loyal citizens. Most of them faking loyal citizenship but kept their customs. Mexican officials feared that Texas citizens were becoming too independent. Mexican officials believed that the government should be able to have all the power, but the Texans believed that they should get to choose to accept or reject the laws. This was the difference between the Texas colonists and the Mexican government. Question number 6. What caused the tensions to increase between Texans and Mexicans? A. Cultural differences. B. Eating habits. C. The Battle of Gettysburg. Or D. Insults to Taco Tuesday.
We're going to backtrack a little to 1824, when the tensions between Texans and Mexicans were becoming quite a pesky problem. The power had gotten out of hand between the states and governments. So the Mexican government decided to make the Constitution of 1824, which allowed the states to accept or reject a law that was made by national government. This eased the tensions for the most part between Texans and Mexicans.
Most Texans supported this constitution because this balanced the power between the states and the government. However, Mexicans who believed that the government should control all the laws and decide whether or not they were followed disagreed with these people. They were called Centralists. The Texans supported the 1824 Constitution because it let up on them, making starting a life in Texas a little bit easier. This caused tension between the Centralists and the people who supported the states' rights to increase. Question number 7. What was the major difference between the Centralist and the states' right supporters? A. The economy. B. The officials of Mexico. C. The government and the thought to make up their own mind. Or D. The environment.
We're back in 1830. A major panic has swept across Mexican officials as the immigration of Anglo-Americans kept a steady increase. They feared that Americans would outnumber the population and possibly overthrow Mexican officials. The Mexicans made a rash decision and passed the law of April 6, 1830. This completely contradicted the Constitution of 1824.
The law took away the impresario grants, which stopped the immigration to Mexico. This applied to all grants that had not been completed. This only stopped the American immigration, but Mexico still strongly encouraged European settlers to move to Mexico. They would even pay for it, as well as provide for land.
Purposely targeted the slowing, if not stopping, immigration of Anglo-Americans by making slavery illegal. Since most Anglo-Americans crossed over to Mexico with slaves, this was also a large setback. The law also put customs duty taxes on everyday items. This means all objects that were transported to Mexico from the U.S. had a hefty tax on them that colonists could not avoid paying.
This frightened many Anglo colonists because, with no one in the cotton fields to pick the cotton, the production in Texas would come to a big halt. This caused Texas's economy to drop majorly. The citizens of Texas felt betrayed by Mexico and wronged. The law also raised sires of political question within the state. People who believed in states' rights felt that Mexico had taken it way too far. Instead of Mexico diffusing the problem, They turned the colonists into a ticking time bomb. Question number 8. What was the final straw to the Texans that made them furious? A. The bounty for an illegal slave. B. The law of April 6, 1830. C. The revolt of Jameson. D. The fight in Public, Texas.
Now in 1832, tensions between Mexicans and Texans are out of control. A dispute over 2 slaves has broken out between Mexicans and Texans. A group of 150 protesters has come to get the 2 arrested innocent Texans, William Travis Barrett and Jack, out of jail. Austin came to support, but was forced to fight his way back to Anahuac due to a riot. After Austin reached his cannon, he quickly loaded it aboard his ship.
Mexico had pushed it too far as Austin rode up the Brazos River, sailing to the mouth of the Gulf of Mexico to reach Velasco. When they prepared to unload the ship, they were stopped by the Mexican officials and denied access to pass. Soon enough, a fight had broken out between the 2 groups. The battle resulted in 10 Texans and 5 Mexicans dead. The Mexicans surrendered due to the lack of ammunition for their weapons. When Austin finally arrived, they found the conflict had already been resolved. This was known as the Battle of Velasco. Question number 9. What was the original conflict that caused the outbreak for fighting? A. Cost of food. B. The outbreak of the plague. C. The Christian revolt. Or D. The arrest of 2 innocent Texans.
Still in the same time of 1832, but were in one of the first of 2 secret conventions. The Texans were pleased with their early success in the battles with Mexico, but they were still very unhappy with the rash decisions of the Mexican government. 52 delegates gathered in San Felipe to elect a president for the convention. The delegates chose Austin as their president. The group chose to support the true Mexican government, not the centralists. They asked for a repeal of the law of April 6, 1830, as well as the ban of immigration to be removed. The group asked to exempt Texans from customs duty tax and split the Colla Tejas into 2. That way both sides could have its own government. Austin left to gain the support of the Tejano community. While away, Mexican officials refused to send their requests to the Mexican government. In the system, it's not always guaranteed to get sent to the Mexican government. As well as this convention, they also managed to set up a large amount of militias.
While Austin was away, the delegates held another convention that was held by William Horton. The group repeated that they wished for the same things as their last convention. The only change was that they had added a proposal that they asked for a new state added to Mexico. The Mexicans, for some who were sympathetic with the Texans, however, some took a defiance to the government. This was known as the Convention of April 1st, 1833. Question number 10. What was the difference in the second convention than the first? A. Proposing for a new state. B. Threatening to destroy Mexico. C. A nuclear bomb. Or D. A weapon that was unheard of.